In this video, I will be going over variables in Python. So you can think of a variable as essentially a container for a data value. So it stores some sort of data under a name. For example, let's say I wanted to create a variable that stored the number of apples I had. And let's say I had 3 apples. So I'm first going to type out the name I want my variable to be. And so in this case, I just want my variable name to be num of apples. And I could give it any name I wanted. So I'll do num of apples. And so you'll notice that when I'm naming my variable, I am putting everything in lowercase and I'm separating the different words by using an underscore. And so this is just a typical way you want to name variables in Python. But you're not restricted by this. So if I wanted to, I could get rid of these underscores and name my variable this, or I could use capital letters. But in general, naming conventions in Python involve separating words in a variable by using these underscores and keeping everything lowercase. Now I want to set this variable equal to 3 because I have 3 apples. So I'm going to do equals 3. And so now I've created my variable num of apples that stores a data value of 3. Now if I wanted to print my variable, I could simply do print and then num of apples. And if I were to run this code, you'll notice that I get an output of 3, which is the value that is stored within this variable. Now, along with storing numbers in variables, I could also store other types of data. So for example, let's say I wanted to store text data. So for example, my name. I could do name. So I'm creating a variable called name, and I'll set it equal to my name. And so again, I'm using quotation marks to surround text. And then I could print out the variable name, and if I were to run this program, you'll notice that the value contained inside of the variable was printed out. And so variables are very helpful when we're dealing with a lot of data and we want to change this data over time, or we might need to. So for example, let's say that the number of apples I had were to change. Then I could print out num of apples here. And later on in the program, if I wanted to, I could update this variable. And to update the value of this variable, I could just retype the name of the variable and set it equal to a new value. So let me just set it equal to 5. So now I have 5 apples. And so if I were to reprint out the number of apples, the variable, and if I were to run this program, you'll notice that I get an output of 3 and 5. And so the value in the variable has changed. So at the start, it was equal to 3. And so when I printed out the variable, I got an output of 3. And then I reassigned the value of 5 to the variable. And so when I printed it out again for the second time, I got the output of 5. And so just to summarize what I went over with variables today, to create a variable, you need a name, and you need to set that variable to some sort of data value. And you can change the value of variables over time, and you can also print out variables by simply referring to the variable name. And so that concludes the lesson on variables.